It's all about Knight Rider. No, wait, it isn't. Not in this video. There should always be time for an exception. And today is one exception. I had the huge pleasure of talking to stunt legend Rick Avery last week. We talked a lot about Knight Rider and about stunts. But we also talked about some things that didn't make it into the final cut of the video with him talking Knight Rider. When I looked at Rick Avery's resume, I was hugely impressed. We talked about it at the dinner table here in my house. And when my son Julian found out that Rick Avery had done movies with Christopher Nolan, the successful director, he immediately had questions regarding The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises, The Prestige, some of the Christopher Nolan movies that Rick Avery worked on. Equally, my daughter Dana is threatened by hijacking my Rick Avery Zoom interview when she found out that Mr. Avery has actually been a stunt double for Richard Gere in the 1990 movie Pretty Woman. Luckily, Dana wasn't at home, so the interview wasn't hijacked. But this video represents all else but Knight Rider. These are some of the very interesting things that I got to talk to Rick Avery about that doesn't directly concern Knight Rider. So, yeah, lean back, enjoy this video, and also you can look forward to the real Rick Avery Knight Rider video coming soon.
Okay. And you also made a living out of stunt doubling. I know both you mentioned John Travolta, but also Robert De Niro.
Yeah, for some reason, it turns out, I've done 14 or 15 movies with Bob, either as most of them as his stunt double, but I've also worked as his stunt coordinator, directed second unit on a couple of projects. So yeah, and fortunately, I'm still, when I put on the clothes, we look like brothers. So I'm a really good stunt double for him, and now I'm a few years younger than him, but we're around the same age. So when I walk on the sets, it's people realize right away why I double him. The directors of Bob's movies get really upset with me because they'll approach me from the side and they'll start talking to me thinking I'm Bob. And then they'll look at me and they'll go, "God damn it, Avery," and they'll walk away. So yeah.
That's
yeah, it's turned out to be a good job being his double. It's got me a lot of work, and he's still working. We did three projects last year that'll be coming out. So, I guess he likes to work, and that's good for me when it's action, especially if it's comedy. There's more action for me when he does a comedy than when he does a straight type of job, because there's all those comical acts. Everybody likes to see an old man fall on his butt, so they write these things for doing horse saddle falls and ratchets and all kinds of different silly stuff.
Yeah. My son is a huge fan of Chris Nolan, and and also the Batman movies. His Batman movies, Dark Knight Rises. I think he would at least like very much to hear if you remember any of the scenes you did and the work you did. If you could just talk a bit about that.
Yeah, well, Chris is an awesome director. He's the only director I've ever worked with that never leaves the set. He is literally where the cameras are. I not only did 3 Batmans with him, I worked on Dunkirk as well. And I coordinated the Prestige. So I think I've worked on like 5 projects with Chris,
Yeah.
and he was always sweet. He would give me a little close up here or there. He liked my name was Rick, and Rick Miller also worked on the show. So he'd say, "Give me the 2 Ricks," and we would do something in front of camera. I remember one night, Wally Pfister, who's a very, very good friend of mine, Oscar-winning cinematographer. We go way back. As a matter of fact, one time we were working, and Wally said, "Let's go back and figure out where we first worked together." I said, "Are you sure you want to go back that far?" And we did, and it turns out we were doing erotic thrillers for HBO
Right.
way back when they were doing topless erotic thrillers, and that's how Wally got in the business, and I was doing these things, stair falls in front of him for that. So we reminisced about it. But one night, uh, I was off set, and they were doing actor coverage in a police car that was chasing the Batmobile. And all of a sudden, they said, "There it came along, get me Rick." So I showed up, and I felt really bad because there was an actor who had been hired to drive this police car, and he had an under 5, as we talked about before.
Yeah.
Um, and there were all kinds of lights on the front of this police car, and he had to drive the police car with Wally in the back, Wally Pfister, the DP,
Yeah.
and Chris, uh, and he couldn't do it. So they called me over, knowing I could do some lines and drive the car. So when I got there, the poor kid got out of the car, went to craft service, and I'm sure he was heartbroken because he had this part in the Batman movie. I'm sure he told his family, and I felt so bad about it. I got in the car and I said, "What do you want me to do, Chris?" And he went, "You were a cop. Just throw out some lines. Say I'm on his butt. Say what you would say." So
Yeah.
I didn't have a script to go by. He would either feed me a line and say this, or it was just ridiculous. And he said, "Stomp on the gas," and off we went. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Dunkirk, he filmed me and Rick underwater. Kind of placed us in a place where you could see our face. And
Yeah.
yeah, the Batman movies were a lot of fun. It was all nights. It was in Chicago, the first 2. The third one we did in LA. It was warm summer nights and just 5 weeks of rehearsals and then 5 weeks of shooting. So we were there for 10 weeks on each one of those.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was always a pleasure working with Chris. And I worked with him on the Prestige as stunt coordinator.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Fantastic movie. Fantastic movie.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So a lot of fun memories, and he's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
I think some of my awards I got. I think 2 or 3 Screen Actors Guild Stunt Ensemble Awards for the Batmans in Dunkirk,
Yeah.
a nomination for Dunkirk, and my Red Bull Taurus Award I got for a driving sequence in one of the Batman
Yeah.
movies,
Yeah.
Dark Knight, I think.
Yeah.
So that's my Chris Nolan stories. He's always, you want to know where he is. He's not in his dressing room. He's not off doing other stuff. He is on the set, and he's always got a cup of coffee, and he's got his monitor right here that he watches the scene with. And the only time he leaves is to take a pee.
Yeah. That's fantastic. It's his work is brilliant. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is. Yeah.
yeah.
So.
I was extremely blessed to be able to work with him. Yes.
And Dana, of course, when I mentioned that you had been the stunt double for Richard Gere in Pretty Woman, she threatened by overtaking this interview entirely. So yeah, so I think I need to ask you. I know she's not at home today, but I need to ask you, how did that come about, and how was that Do you remember which scenes? Because we immediately talked about, well, was there a need for doubling him? And then my girlfriend, she said he hit Jason Alexander. I know Richard Gere hit Jason Alexander in one of the scenes. So I don't know if that was you.
Yeah. My first movie I ever did, my first Screen Actors Guild movie, was in 1980, doubling John Travolta on a movie called Blowout.
Yeah.
And there was a young guy named Roger Pugliese who was working as a production assistant. And the producer who hired me to do the job, his name was Fred Caruso. And he approached Roger Pugliese one day and said, if you want to get anywhere in this business, kid, wear a tie. So Roger, from that day on, wore a tie. Now, I don't know what year Pretty Woman was. I want to say 86 or 80, late 80s. I'm not sure. But one day I was coordinating on a set and I got a phone call and the gentleman said, hi, is this Rick Avery? I said, yes, it is. And he said, I don't know if you remember me. My name's Roger Pugliese. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't remember you. He said, well, the tie thing got him somewhere. He became a line producer and a UPM. And he says, I'm the unit production manager on this movie called Pretty Woman. And I understand you'd be a good stunt double for Richard Gere. And well, why are you calling me? He said, well, you were the only nice guy to me on that first movie I worked on. So you came to mind.
It pays off.
So it pays off. So it turns out that I'm a really good double, as good a double with Richard as I am with Bob. I think I doubled him on the intern. No, some cop movies. Anyway, yeah, there was a driving sequence, driving a great car that I had to double.
Yeah, the Lamborghini.
In a Lamborghini.
Yeah,
So we did that little driving thing. And then there was a slap fight that you mentioned. But it was with what was the actress's name?
Jason Alexander. I know. Of
Jason
course, I know.
Alexander.
Yeah.
There's a slap with the lady who's what's her name? The actress, famous actress, playing Pretty Woman.
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts, right? So I was
yeah.
brought on set to coordinate that whole sequence. So that I believe was the only action we had, was a little slap punch fight in the apartment and the driving sequence that we had.
So it all in all, it was a pretty easy job.
Very easy job, but that job and that relationship with Roger Pugliese that I had, he went on to do a lot of movies, and he brought me on as stunt coordinator on every one of his movies.
Yeah.
And we're still buddies to this day.
That's fantastic.
He's retired. He's retired, but we just had lunch a few months ago, and he doesn't wear a tie anymore, but he keeps his collar closed. So he introduced me. He introduced me to Howie Deutsch.
Yeah.
I did a few movies with. He introduced me to John Landis, who I did everything that John Landis did after the accident. So yeah, he was a very important person in my career. So Pretty Woman holds a place in my heart for meeting Roger.
Yeah, of course, I can understand. Yeah, and I'm just humble actually talking to you. You've been involved with Pretty Woman and been involved in so many big things. It's it's so impressive. It is. So,
yeah, God has blessed me. He continues to bless me every day, and I thank God. God's responsible for my whole life and all the turns and the good karma that's come my way. Is all from God.
Yeah.